who are here in person. We're very excited to introduce two topics today. Our two of the main topics today are on LCAP and the anti-bullying presentation. So again, I presented this last time, but as a friendly reminder, the purpose of Coffee with the Headmaster is to build relationships between school and parents, to share some school-wide announcements and updates, create and develop goals together, and discuss improvement ideas, and allow staff members an opportunity to provide various workshops. And also for parents to ask some questions and address any thoughts that you have that you want to share. Before we begin, can we go ahead and recite our 6 pillars of character? Returning parents, this should be very familiar for you, but let's go ahead and recite the 6 pillars of virtue. Ready? Begin.
6 virtuous pillars on which OCCA stands. Courage and honesty go hand in hand. Both demonstrate that you believe in what's true, beautiful to see in me and you. Citizenship means we respect school, town, and nation. Courtesy and kindness inspire our generation. Our character traits reveal what's in our hearts. They show unity and virtue and set us apart. To maintain the strength of these foundational traits, we pledge responsibility to contemplate important words and actions which identify our mission. This is our steadfast hope and our ambition. Honesty, courage, courtesy, respect, responsibility, and citizenship of the extent.
Thank you. At this point of the year, our students should have memorized all of the 6 virtuous pillars. So, except for TK and Kinder, they're still working on it. I think it's maybe about half. But our students will continue to recite this every morning. Today's agenda, as I mentioned, we'll start with the announcement and updates. And we're going to go over LCAP and school priorities, anti-bullying, as well as cyberbullying prevention. These are, again, in the 6 virtuous pillars. We decided the 6 pillars that we uphold at the grammar level. Once we get to the logic level, which is the middle school level, we will go ahead and add a little more pillars that are more appropriate for that age. But these 6 pillars are what we all uphold as staff members, as parents, and as students. Classical education trivia. The question at the top was the question from last Coffee with the Headmaster. So go ahead and turn to somebody sitting next to you and tell them, what 2 virtues do we teach at OCCA? Go ahead. All right, would anybody like to respond? Don't be shy. It's the 2 virtues. Does anybody remember what they're called? Which virtues? It's the intellectual virtue and the moral virtue. And which has to come first? Yes, the moral virtue must come first. Just like I was saying, a student cannot take the test well until they learn how to be responsible, to study for the test, and to be courteous to others as they're taking the test. And there are so many other virtues, moral virtues that they have to demonstrate before they master the intellectual virtue. And does anybody know, this is in our mission statement. OCCA's primary goal is to raise virtuous citizens. If your friend asks you, what is the mission for OCCA? It's not college and career readiness, it's to raise virtuous citizens. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with Ms. Flores going over the office announcement.
Photo makeup will be October 26th. And just a friendly reminder, I know we have a lot of programs coming up, a lot of events, so make sure you have your background check and TB because we would like you to participate and help and volunteer for that. If you need any questions, for that, just email me or call me.
Okay, and then real quick, I just wanted to thank everybody for completing the interest list. If you're interested in any grade, but most specifically for 7th and 8th grade next year, if you have any friends or family that are interested, it's important that they go ahead and they complete the link on our website. So if you can share that with them, that would be great. Thank you.
Does anyone have the updates for fundraise committee? Okay.
What do you need to know?
Just, what are the updates for this? Could you come up and speak on the microphone? We're also live streaming this too, so the listeners, last time they said that they couldn't hear unless we're speaking into the microphone.
Okay, so the next thing that's up is Full Fundraiser, which is, I believe Rebecca's launching it next week. And I don't know all the details about it, but it will launch next week, and we will be ending on November 5th with our Olympics. That will be like the end of our fall fundraiser. So look for the packets that are coming home probably next week.
Thank you.
And we also have Eagle Mamas, which is on November 17th, and that will be like a mom, grandma, aunt, women in their family. We'll be able to go shopping for Christmas with vendors from our school, and that's November 17th.
And we have Trump or Treat coming up too, right? In October?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can you just make sure that all of these are on the parent word calendar, so parents have the heads up? Great. And Mrs. Minor, would you like to come up and give us an update on the AAC meeting?
Yes. Good morning. Super formal. All right, our next meeting is next Thursday, the 14th. I believe that's next week. Next week. At 1:15 p.m. And I don't think there's any real updates. We're just gonna discuss things coming up, as well as report back on agenda items that we've kind of been going through the last couple weeks. So, please come.
Thank you. Mr. Holden?
Good morning, everyone. I just want to invite you to join us for our safety committee meetings. They're the last Friday of every month at 10:30. So if you have any questions about safety, what we look out for, how many security cameras we have on campus, how we make sure students, our building, our staff is safe, please join us the last Friday of every month at 10:30.
Okay, this has been a really exciting month. Among the reasons was announced on Parent Square this morning. If you did read Parent Square, you will have discovered that our board and leadership has decided to submit a petition to the Orange County Board of Education to become a charter school under the purview of the council. That means is if approved, and we're months away from that being determined, if approved, we will be under the county purview, not under the local district purview. Okay, that's what that means. We're being filmed. Now, because the petition is in process, we simply cannot elaborate further right now, okay? But what's critically important for us to know is this affects how we're going to proceed with Proposition 39. Right? Some of you may remember this from last year, just to help you along. Proposition 39 are a set of legal requirements that require our authorizers, whether it's the district or county, to help support us providing necessary facilities to accommodate our students. That means we're going to have two petitions, one for the district in case for some reason we don't get approved the county, the other for the county. That way, no matter what happens, we have Prop 39 and the support that's coming with that. What that means for the parents is the following. If you reside inside of Orange Unified School District, we will need you to submit 2 forms. Not one like last year, but 2 forms indicating your intention to come back next year. Right? One for the district and one for the county. Those of you who live in the county but do not live in the district, this year you will need to submit 1 form. All right? That will be for the county. Those of you who live outside the county like myself, please remind those who are in the district and the county. Right? Annoy them if you have to. I'm doing my job right now. I respect. Okay. So I will submit on Parent Square the necessary documents, descriptions of what needs to happen. It's really important if you fall into either of those categories to fill out those forms, because that gives us a foundation with which we can go to our authorizers to say we need you to provide legally required accommodations for our rapidly growing school. Okay? So write that down, remember it, tell your friends.
So just to kind of add on to that a little bit, one of the main reasons, we have so many reasons, but one of the main reasons we're wanting to go under the county is because when Tammy and I checked most recently, we're close to, I think we made it over 1,000 people on the waiting list. And they're not just coming from the city of Orange, they're coming from all of the Orange County and some from LA County. Some from San Diego, actually. So we want to widen the options because that's 3 more schools that we could open immediately. And it's really difficult to find the property just within the city of Orange. So if we go under the county, then it gives us the entire Orange County to look for more options. So that's one of the main reasons. And we truly believe that this education will benefit all students, really, in America. With Prop 39, so this is our way of submitting our request to the district to give us a building. So the district is obligated to provide a building location for all our charter schools. So we have to submit a Prop 39. Now, just because next year we're planning on adding 7th and 8th grade, so let's say we have 540 students, they're not going to give us a building that will house 540 students. They're only going to give us a building calculated based on the number of students that would qualify to go to OUSD. Meaning that if they live in Orange, city of Orange, where it's part of the OUSD district, then they'll house, let's say we have 100 students who qualify, then they'll give us a few classrooms at a school building where we can house those students. So this is really good because if we don't find the secondary location, then at least, let's say they give us a few classrooms that can house 7th and 8th grade. So we can have the 7th and 8th grade temporarily be there. That is one of the options that we're considering. So that I just wanted to kind of add on to the detail. We'll have some time for Q&A towards the end. So if you have any questions, please hold on to your thoughts. We'll have Mrs. Sir sharing some academic committee.
Morning, everybody. I just have one update today, actually. If you are a parent of a 6th grader, can you raise your hand? Okay, well, good. So pretty soon, you're going to be hearing some announcements from me about an academic pentathlon. And we are very cautiously going to be participating in the academic pentathlon this year, and that's through the Orange County Department of Education. I will share a lot more later. I just wanted to let you know that in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to start talking to 6th grade students to see who is interested. And, you know, just to let you know, the way that the OCCA does their pentathlon, it is not only the super high achieving students who participate. In fact, you have to have a team with 3 categories. So one category are what you would call an A student, and then you've got a category for B students, and then there's actually a category for like a B- and lower. And we have to have kids in every category to create a team. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I'm going to be talking to the students and answering all of their questions. And whenever I get the flyer from them, I will be sending that out to everybody here. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to our LCAP presentation. So LCAP stands for Local Control Accountability Plan. It's basically the state's way of holding all charter schools accountable. Not only charter schools, but all districts are required to submit a plan of school priorities and actions. It's a way for the state to measure what are your goals and how did you do. And we need to have a 3-year plan. So it's not just for this year, but for the next 3 years. What is our plan for year number 2, year number 3, year number 4? We are required to submit 1 LCAP per LEA. LEA stands for Local Educational Agency. Because we are a single school charter school, we're our own district. So our district is not OUSD. Our district is Orange County Classical Academy. We're governed by under 1 board, and when we open more schools, all Orange County Classical Academy schools will be under the same board. So we're considered to be 1 LEA. OUSD does not have an LCAP for every school that they have. They submit 1 LCAP for the entire district. The LCAP must address all 8 state priorities. These are the California state priorities currently. So the first one is called the conditions of learning. We have to make sure that we're providing all basic services and implementation of state standards and course access. Course access is a little more relevant to the secondary level at high school level, but for state standards, we may be asking, so how are we accessing state standards when we don't teach Common Core? We're still obligated to teach Common Core. So what we do is, although our curriculum is classical education, our teachers, they have spent last year and this year analyzing which of the curriculum does not cover the Common Core standards. Thankfully, there's not too many. Our curriculum is so robust that it actually covers a lot more in comparison to Common Core. But we still have to identify, are there standards that are being taught at Common Core in 3rd grade that we may be teaching in 2nd grade or 4th grade, and we have to review them. We have to fit them into our pacing guide. So our teachers do that. And the second category is student outcome. We're responsible of, we're mandated to report how our students perform both externally through the SBAC performance and LCAP, as well as internally. So internal data, we talked about it last coffee with the Headmaster. We have our benchmark assessment, our internal measurement using our curriculum. And then we have engagement. So how are we involving our parents? What are some student engagement we have? This year, we have the privilege to have our student council, and there's been a lot of wonderful things that have been happening. School climate, so our culture for parents, how are we valuing the input of our parents and students and staff members. So these are the 8 state priorities. Some of the more specific examples of what we're doing for the conditions of learning. We have to ensure that all teachers are qualified, meaning that every teacher must hold a valid California multiple subject teaching credential. If they don't have a credential, we cannot hire them, unfortunately. School facilities, we get a review. We have the oversight visit coming up tomorrow by OUSD, and they're doing an entire facility walkthrough. And we get an evaluation of the entire facility. And students have access to standards alignment materials, so we talked about that. We also make sure that all students have their own copies of their textbooks. That's important, not only because it's a state mandate, but in classical education, we don't do a lot of technology-based teaching, right? So they don't learn through the computers, they learn through cardboard, or textbooks and raw materials, right? So when they learn, we believe in every child having a copy of their own book. Students are enrolled in a broad course of study, again, that's more relevant to the secondary level. And the pupil outcomes, we analyze all the performance on the standardized testing and the formative assessments, which refers to the internal assessment. We also report how our English learners did. Last year, we had more than half of our ELs reclassified, which is amazing. And we believe that it's because we have such a good literacy program that naturally helps them to develop in their language acquisition skills. The last one is in the engagement. So not only in the parent engagement, but we report on the school attendance rates. This is how the state measures the engagement piece. The state calls it the social and emotional growth and development. And so one of the ways that they know that our students are happy here is through our attendance, because it shows that they do want to come to school. And if they're coming on time, and they're coming every day, how many independent studies are being submitted, all of that has to be reported. Dropout and graduation rates, we're not there yet, but once we get to high school, that has to be reported. Suspension and expulsion rates, last year we had 0, and we hope to continue to have 0. Parent involvement in decision-making and the degree to which students feel safe and connected to school. How many of you guys took the survey that was sent out at the end of last year? It was a parent survey. Okay, thank you for those who completed it, because all of that response gets submitted to the state. So it's really important that we get a really genuine, authentic result that really helps us to reflect on creating priorities. So our goal number 1, we have 3 goals for LCAP. So at the school level, there's all these different criteria and different things that we need to consider. But as a school, our goals should not be the same year after year. Our goals have to reflect how we did last year. And our goals have to reflect what are the most important measurements that we have to consider, right? So our first goal is all students will receive classical education instruction provided by credentialed teachers and support staff, access to the content-rich liberal arts and sciences curriculum, and facility maintained and good repair. We will be providing required curriculum and learning materials recommended by UCSI to 100% of students. We would like to maintain a 3 or better on the facility report card used to access the condition of the building and operations of the school. That's our first goal. Our second goal is that all students will be provided with appropriate curriculum, materials, resources, and instruction by highly trained teachers. The training provided is for both teachers and parents, which focuses on developing a high-quality classical education and learning through the implementation of the classical standards that also provide access to the state standards. We have the SBEC ELA, SBEC Math, EL students making progress, EL reclassification rate, implementation of academic content, how program and services will enable EL students, and other academic outcomes. So we have, our teachers got tons of training already over the summer and even during the school year. We get training from Hillsdale College. We get training from our curriculum developers. We train our teachers ourselves, our leadership team. And also Mike will be doing the classical education training for parents. When's the first one come? October 28th. And we strongly encourage you to attend. It's going to be here in person, and it's going to be very powerful. We've all gone through it, and it's eye-opening, and you get deeper into understanding what classical education is. Our third goal is that all parents will have opportunities to participate in workshops, events, stakeholder engagement trainings, utilize resources and services, as well as provide input in decision-making with an emphasis of ELs and special education. So parent response on the different survey questions are how we measure the progress, school attendance, and the number of actual events and workshops and meetings that we hold. These are actually goals that we presented before as a draft. Before submitting to the state, we presented to our parents last year during Coffee with the Headmaster and during AAC, and that we got input from our parents before finalizing it. So these are
the goals that these aren't goals that the admin created or the board created. These are goals that we receive the input from our parents and from our staff members. One of the biggest input that we got from parents during the AAC meeting was that parents would like more training on classical education. So we intentionally added that to goal number 2. We will again, sometime in March, we will again present this. And before we finalize it, we will get your input again. And we will ask you, how do you think we did? What do you think we need to do more? What is missing here that you would like to add for next year's school priorities? So that's going to come up in March. So we also have our school priorities at the teachers level. I want to quickly go over them. We won't go into too much detail, but our first priority that our staff members committed to this year is to, how do we enhance the school culture? We want to build a strong community of students, families, and staff through establishing a strong foundation based on our mission and vision of OCCA. So these are all the ideas that we have, and we measure the progress every week. We have a lead team meeting with all the lead teachers that represent the entire staff population. Every single staff members, even the janitors, are part of a team. And we all have weekly meetings to measure the progress of how we're doing and how we're meeting these goals. School priority 2 is high quality instruction. So how are we doing with our assessment data, our ELs, our students with IEPs? And then school priority 3 is school safety. Establish and maintain safety for students, staff, and families. So these are the staff commitment priorities. I know I kind of went over it a little too quickly, but I do want to allow more time for Q&A. And by the way, speaking of Q&A, I have heard over and over from parents whenever we have Zoom meetings, it's uncomfortable. They feel like there's no intimacy or privacy to ask questions freely. So that's why I requested to turn off the live stream. I don't want the Q&A to be recorded for that reason. I want to allow a more intimate setting for parents to freely ask questions. So I apologize those who are watching online, but if you have questions, you're more than welcome to email us directly. All of our emails are listed on our school website, by the way, for all staff members. Okay, we're gonna transition into the anti-bullying and cyberbullying. So nationally, there's always something going on. There's always an event going on. And the month of October is actually an anti-bullying month for schools in America. And at the school level, we haven't announced this yet to students, so they don't know, but we're trying to bring one of the sheriffs to join us for our school assembly, who can talk to our students about anti-bullying. And our teachers have been doing a lot of different activities regarding anti-bullying. And our staff members, of course, we've been trained every year multiple times in how to prevent bullying, but there was a refreshment of how to go about to really prevent bullying. And so with parents, I thought we would do the same. And so let's start with, what is bullying? So there's a difference between bullying and conflict. I think 99% of the time, students and parents jump into describing it as bullying, especially students, young students. They go, oh, so-and-so is bullying me, or I'm being bullied, but they don't understand what bullying means. So the difference between a conflict and bullying is one person intentionally hurting or harming another with words or behavior. And it's done intentionally. The key word is intentionally, on purpose. If somebody bumped into somebody, that's not intentional, right? And that's not bullying, that's a conflict. The person being hurt has a hard time making it stop. The behavior is being repeated. Another key word is repeated. If it's the targeted person being bullied repeatedly over and over again, then we consider that to be bullying. But if it's a one-time incident, then it's more of an incident or a conflict. Power can mean the kids who are doing it have more power, and power can mean the person bullying is older or bigger or stronger, more popular, or there's a group of kids who gang up on someone. So that's how we define bullying. And there are 4 types of bullying. First is physical. This is when somebody pushes, shoves, kicks, hits, bites, or hurts another kid's body. It can also include taking or damaging someone else's things. Those are all physical bullying. The second bullying is verbal bullying. Includes teasing, name calling, threats, mean jokes, rumors, gossip, and saying things about someone that's not true. Third bullying is emotional. And a lot of times, this is probably the most difficult to catch, right? Because most of the emotions are not very visible, at least immediately. So it's when your emotions are hurt, it hurts people on the inside and makes them feel bad about themselves. Examples include leaving someone out on purpose, telling lies about someone, and embarrassing somebody publicly. There's also cyberbullying that we can't ignore. Nowadays, I'm sure you all agree with me, I couldn't believe how many of our students, even starting in 2nd grade, have access to their own phones. I'm very surprised. And while I respect that it's completely the parent's choice, I do believe that at the grammar level, probably logic level too, parents must supervise their child's cell phone. There should be nothing that they're hiding. Students at the grammar age are not old enough to own the phone completely, where they're texting and parents have no idea what they're texting about or what website they're accessing or what YouTube account they're accessing. We have to be very, very careful, especially nowadays. Not only cell phones, but iPads. There's all these Nintendo Switch. There's video games that you can apparently talk to any stranger out there. We have to be very, very, very careful and wise. So cyberbullying includes sending mean text messages, posting videos, stories, or photos that make fun of someone, and spreading rumors online. Even if your child does not have a cell phone, you can't just assume that they're safe. When you're at church, when you are at a play date, or when they're hanging out with their older cousins, you never know, right? You can never assume. But they may access something through their friend's cell phone. So know the difference. Again, when students tell you and report what's happening, when someone says or does something unintentionally hurtful, we try to describe it as they're rude. They may do it unintentionally, but it's still rude. They're lacking courtesy. When someone says or does something intentionally hurtful, they're mean. And when someone says or does something intentionally hurtful and they keep doing it over and over and they don't stop, despite you telling them to stop, that's called bullying. So that's how we introduce the ideas of what's happening, and so that students have that awareness of what they're experiencing. Of course, they don't feel good. It doesn't make you feel good, but it's important for them to understand what's happening. So if it's bullying, then we teach them they have to say something. Now, there's different ways to go about it. And I know so many times the students or parents worry about retaliation. Oh, you told the teacher, so now the student's gonna do it more, you know. And at OCCA, we make it very clear. It's not tattletelling is if you're reporting something that's unnecessary. But it's not tattletelling if you're reporting something that's important. And we make that very clear with all of our students. And we tell them that it is our expectation that you report, regardless of whether it's your friend, regardless of the relationship that you have with them, regardless of whether you're gonna get in trouble or they're gonna get in trouble. It's the right thing to do. So it makes it a whole lot easier if we focus it on the virtues, because we talk about honesty, we talk about integrity, we talk about respect and courtesy, and things really bring that sense of norming, right? We're able to norm on that common expectations of why we believe it's the right thing to do. So after they say something, they pick who to tell. That's also important because they don't want to be going around telling their friends, other friends, and it makes the situation even worse. You want to tell an adult that you can trust. If you feel that it's unresolved, then you go to your, definitely at the very least, your teacher and your parent. And exercise your right. It is your right to be able to talk about these things. And nobody can tell you, don't say this, don't talk about it. That's important. Our children need to learn. Nobody can force you to do something or not do something. Even when I went into the classrooms and talked about TikTok, I never told them, you are not allowed to look at TikTok. Who am I to tell them? That's their freedom. Even as a young individual, that's their freedom. It's better to tell them, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. As a human being, that's your freedom and that's your right. But do know that there's always consequences for every action. And you allow them and help them to reflect on it. And there's so much more power to that because now it becomes their own choice that they're making instead of just being told not to do. So when we equip our students through talking like that, then guess what? Even when a bully tells them, you better not say anything, they learn and they feel empowered. Nope, that's my choice. That's not your choice to tell me. And to know that you did the right thing, regardless of the outcome. They may feel bad because their friend got in trouble, but they have to understand that it was the right thing to do. So we teach our students to be assertive. And assertive doesn't mean, I think sometimes little kids, they get confused. They think assertive means I have to raise my voice and I have to yell and I have to scream. No, assertive means that you speak with honesty and courage and you use firm voice, and we model for them. Our teachers model for them how to be assertive. For example, please don't push me. I don't appreciate being called that. I'd appreciate if you stop making fun of me. We have to practice. It's really good if parents practice those scenarios with your child to be preventative, not after something happens, because after something happens, guess what? There's a lot of emotions that are tied to it, and it's hard for them to really practice this. But be preventative and give them different scenarios and say, okay, you go to school and your friend so-and-so did this. What do? What can you say? How can you be virtuous and wise, right? And practice being assertive. Being assertive is not something that can easily, it's not natural. Most adults and most students, it's not natural for them to be assertive. I mean, as adults too, how many of us are really comfortable approaching to have difficult conversations? I know some parents are, but it's not easy. It's not easy. So these are skills that we need to teach our students and how to do it the right way. Reflecting on the incidents, almost always it's two parties involved. So a lot of times we hear one student reporting something, and once we hear from the other student, there's always two sides to a story, right? And you think about how you can prevent it and teach them ignoring is an option too. If it's not done to you and if it's not affecting you, you have to leave it up to the teacher to handle it. And be prudent in approaching every situation with wisdom and virtue. So what do we do at OCCA once we see a conflict or bullying? And by the way, regardless of whether it's a conflict or bullying, we all address it immediately. We believe that that's important. So how do we do it? We probe to get more accurate information. You never just jump into, oh, just because this parent told me that this happened, you can't just take an action. We have to investigate. It's not fair for the other student. It's not fair for the parents of the other student either. We first investigate whether it's bullying or an incident. And one of the most typical ways that we do this is through holding a restorative conversation with both students. And we model how to do this with our teachers so that we're all aligned in the way that we ask questions. But a restorative conversation is typically the teacher sitting there as a facilitator. And you ask questions and you guide them to reflect, and you encourage them to do the right thing as a next step. Those are all staff members' responsibility. And we help each student to clearly state what the person needs from the other. Moving forward, I need you to do this. I need you to stop pushing me in line. I need you to use your words and remind me if you don't like something that I do. And then we believe at OCCA that there are standards of correctness. And we believe that logical consequences must be given for every action. It's not because we don't like the student. We love all of our students, but because we love them, we believe that consequences must be assigned. And that's how they grow. That's how they reflect and learn from it. Even if they're like being super reflective and they're like, I'm so sorry, Mrs. Park. I learned my lesson. I won't do it again. And I go, I'm proud of you. Thank you. Great job. But here's your consequence, right? You have to do that. You have to be consistent with it. And parents, please don't do that at home too. Don't tell them you're going to get time out if you do this, and they do it, and then they're being so cute, so you take it away. No, you have to stick to it. Be consistent with it. If you told them that something, whether it's a positive promise or a consequence-related promise, stick to it. The consistency is key. And then you not only assign consequences, but you support them by creating next steps. So you may involve the campus monitors to observe them more closely during lunch recess and to intervene and to stay close, or to, in certain cases, if it's a tier 2 level or tier 3, then we may separate them, right? We may have, we've done one of our teachers where a student's lunch, a student made fun of another student's food, lunch last year. The teacher had them do some research on that ethnic food and brought it to class. And he presented it in front of the whole class and why he thought it was such a cool ethnic food. And they loved it. And so we may be creative in some of the logical consequences. When I say logical, I'm saying it has to make sense. For example, if a student, we've had an incident where a student drew on the bathroom stall. Their logical consequence was to spend their lunch recess and to clean it. Makes sense. You mess it, you have to fix it, right? That's the same concept. A student who name called another student. I had the student in my office call the parent and say the word out loud. It was a curse word, and they said, no, it was the first letter. I said, nope, say the whole thing. And there's a power to doing that. The parent was like, oh, it's okay, I got it. But there's power to repeating it. Any word that you use in front of anyone else, you have to be confident enough to repeat it in front of your parents, in front of me, in front of anybody else, right? So those are some of the logical consequences that we implement. We focus on giving them correction, not punishment. We never call it punishment. We don't want our students to feel like they're being punished. The purpose of discipline is to correct and teach, not to punish. We want to maintain our good relationships with all of our students. We don't believe in shaming our students. If it's something that involves something that one student did, there's no reason to announce it in front of the whole class, right? So our teachers, they do their best to address it at the eye level, at a lower voice, and or they may call them for a separate meeting in a private setting. Begin with minimal consequences until more drastic measures are needed. If it's repeated, the consequences also have to increase, right? We also believe at OCCA, we say our teachers all know this. For every redirection, meaning corrective behavior, there has to be 5 times as much positive reinforcement. And that's really important because as human beings, we like to feed on positive encouragement. Can you imagine if somebody's always observing you and watching you at work or at home and then always giving you feedback? Do this, do that. You're not doing this correctly. You're not doing a good job. Same for our students. They need to hear a lot of positive encouragement. So we believe that praising children who are following directions, give rewards randomly when possible so that kids are not performing for rewards. We call it intrinsic motivation. We do extrinsic, material rewards sometimes, especially in the primary grades, because they're a little too young to really understand the intrinsic motivation. But especially in the upper grade, we like to focus on just doing good for the sake of being good. And that's our goal in classical education. We want them to genuinely pursue what's beautiful and good and true, just because it's the right thing to do. And we have to be very careful about rewarding good behavior. If it's an expectation, good behavior does not merit a reward. If it's an expectation, we expect them to follow, not to get something. We do not want to train students to expect the reward for doing what's right. Lastly, we want to ask for parents' grace and patience. There's a FERPA, which stands for Family Educational Rights Privacy Act. A lot of times, parents, when you hear about your child's incident, it's natural for you to be emotional. But please don't approach difficult conversations when you are still feeling emotional. We all have to be able to think logically and problem solve together. No matter what, we're here to support you and work with you to make the best decisions for your child. You have to trust that. And we cannot disclose the information of the other students that are involved. You have to understand we have different students with different strengths and different needs here, right? Some students, you don't know if that child has an IEP. We can never disclose that, right? If a student is in special education, if a student is in EL, if a student is a foster student, we can never disclose that information. Please be patient with us because we do our best within our understanding. We have the privilege of understanding what's happening in that child's life. And we do have students who are going through some very tough times. And we have to be very mindful of that, right? We don't want to be too harsh just because the other parent is so upset. So we ask for your continuous grace and patience and trust in our team. And of course, after reaching out to your teacher, if you feel that it's not resolved, please don't just drop it. Reach out to me, reach out to any of the admin team, and we're happy to be involved. True virtue is about the heart. The typical belief regarding discipline is that if you get your children to act in a certain way, you are disciplining them correctly. But it's not about their action. Just because they're sitting up straight and saying, yes, mom, yes, dad, eating dinner really nicely, yes, that's great, but that has to be the outcome because of their change in heart, right? So we don't base our success based on their action. Our goal is to help students think correctly and be motivated out of love of virtue rather than fear of punishment. How do we reach a child's heart? We help children to understand and evaluate their own motives by taking time to draw out their thoughts. By asking questions and addressing the motives behind the behavior, we are equipping students to analyze their own beliefs and behavior. They will grow in integrity and desire virtue even into adulthood. This is also Socratic method of instruction. Social media. So I'm sure there's tons more that I'm not familiar with, but there's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok nowadays. There's a lot more that some of the names I've never even heard of that apparently our older grade students are aware of. So typing words and posting them to these type of sites is talking in public. They have to understand whatever they type in social media, they think just because you're hiding behind the computer that nobody will find out. Nope. Social media is more dangerous nowadays, and I'm sure we can all relate to it. So we have to be preventative in teaching our students. All of our students in upper grade, 3rd through 6th grade, receive this presentation. Our teachers have talked about it continuously throughout the year. And I want to be clear, what happens at home, we're very limited to what we can do. It's not up to our teachers to give them consequences for something that happens outside of school. The parents have to intervene, and we trust our parents that they will do the right thing and they will follow up accordingly. Our teachers, however, if their interaction through cyberbullying or something that happens outside of school affects them at the school setting, then we intervene. We intervene, but the parents must communicate with our teachers of what's going on. This is all presentation pulled from what we actually delivered to our upper grade students. We told them you can't be sure of a person's real identity online or even on video games. That cool person you're chatting with who says he or she is in 5th grade and is a nice person might actually look like this. We're not trying to scare them, but we want to give them the reality. And we told them never give out the address, your address, or agree to meet someone that you don't know in real life. Do not tell someone your where you go to school or where you go after school. There are some creepy people out there, and don't be tricked by them. If someone is being rude or mean, block them. That's their right on social media. They don't need to continue fighting or arguing with that person. You could block that person, or you don't have to respond to the chat. You could leave the chat. If you do get bullied through cyberbullying, save the evidence. It's important that you save the evidence, take a screenshot of it. The only good news about digital bullying is that the harassing messages can actually be used for capturing, saving, and being shown to someone who can help. And after they do that, they should go to a responsible adult who can intervene. If someone is doing something wrong online, tell a trusted adult. If you know about a friend who's doing dangerous things on the internet, it's better to tell a trusted adult. If someone on the internet seems like they're acting creepy or inappropriate, tell a trusted adult. Don't endanger yourself by engaging in mean behavior online. Don't encourage others to be mean or do dangerous things online. Bullying is never cool. So this is kind of a brief summary of what we do here. We'll go ahead and transition into Q&A. Please feel free to ask any questions regarding the LCAP or the anti-bullying presentation or any of the announcements that you heard earlier. We'll go ahead and stop the recording at this point.